Nope. Nah. No! Oh, what's this? Final Fantasy VII. Never heard of it. And how could something that has 7 in the name be a final entry anyway? What the hell? I'll give it a shot. Okay. I really hope she's a main character.
Hey, that's her. I wonder if she'll show up again. Oh god, oh damn, I am so dead! No way, her flowers saved me? Do I want to guard her body? Yeah, I don't have to think twice about that one. Okay, let's see how she is in a fight. Nice, one-hit kill magic, amazing healing abilities. Damn, Aerith is awesome! Crazy magic stats too. I'm gonna boost her up some more. Oh yeah! Damn, just look at her now! A bit more couldn't hurt though. Oh sweet, a new limit. I wonder what it does. Oh lord, there's a dragon. I'm gonna die. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna die. Holy crap, Aerith saved us. Hey, get away from her. Get away from her, goddammit! Huh, weird place. Mithril? Oh, maybe that'll be useful. This guy wants the mithril? Sure, I guess I'll pick the small one. Good things come in small packages. Great gospel. Oh, sweet! It's her ultimate limit. Not ready yet.
That's all right, Aerith. We'll take our time, and we'll get stronger. Let's do this!
Pulse of life. Oh, damn. As if she wasn't already doing enough. She's just incredible. Oh, look at this weapon. She's so stacked. She is never leaving my party again.
You're right, Aerith. It's all going to be okay.
Oh my god, invincibility and complete recovery? I just don't know what to say anymore. Ah, this wall is kicking my ass. Let's use it. That was just incredible. You can't beat her. She's invincible, I'm telling you. You can't win.
Sorry. Sorry. Welcome to the weekend. It's good to see you. This is Shep from Gaming Introspection, here to shed light on the highest and lowest moments from the most iconic games in history. If you can feel the impact of these videos, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. And speaking of impact, what game had a bigger impact on RPG history than Final Fantasy VII?
It's one of the most celebrated games in the past 25 years. Full motion video was a novel storytelling technique, and this graphical upgrade attached players to the characters in ways that no other RPG had done before. The commercials showed tons of those flashy FMV clips, and I can't help but wonder if this slick ad campaign tricked more casual gamers into buying it than would have normally been possible. Check out this quote from an EGM magazine. "I returned the game because I didn't know there would be reading in it." Obviously, not everyone knew what an RPG was in 1997. What people know now, though, is that Final Fantasy VII has one of the most iconic villains and two of the most iconic weapons of all time. So much so that Cloud and Sephiroth themselves are represented in crossover entries as far outside of Sony as Nintendo's Super Smash Bros. Series. The lore is always expanding, starting with the Advent Children movie and still continuing today with the Final Fantasy VII Remake project. Hey, just for fun, mention in the comments, what year do you think the Final Fantasy VII Remake will be done? I honestly have no idea. Is it too eager to expect it to be completed by 2030?
Now, I bet that number had absolutely no shock value for any of you as soon as I said it. In fact, some of you are probably shaking your head in disbelief that I would assume it would be completed that early. But please let me know what you really think in the comments. Remakes aside, as I always do in my overanalysis, I need to home in on a few hits and misses the original Final Fantasy VII still carries with it that both amaze and frustrate us to this day. Let's get started. The reason why I still enjoy replaying this game, and yes, I mean the original version, is because there's always something new and exciting coming up, and that's even if you just stick to the main storyline events.
You could go straight from plot point to plot point and would still undergo some refreshing changes of pace from the standard random battles that still remain very prevalent in the game's general exploration. Even in the main dungeons, you've got gems like the tap at the same time segment with Tifa and Barrett, which was so corny but charming it's now playable in 4K in the remake. Time limits on evacuating the reactors, which can help give some fun urgency. These time limits reoccur now and then, like when you're trying to snag the huge materia from the Corel train. And this even results in two completely different movie scenes depending on if you succeed or not. You'll either gracefully slow down the train, or you'll devastate a downtrodden town that has already been slapped in the face so many times by the Shinra that they think Scarlet is the real president. Oh, and that slapping minigame? Just another example of the nonsensical but entertaining gameplay additions Final Fantasy VII creates for the player. I don't think it'll win any awards for progressive female video game character development though. Actually, this whole act in Junon really has a lot that makes my point. There's the gas escape scene with Tifa where you have to move your joints simultaneously to use the key, and the most unlikely party meld of Barrett, Kate Sith, and Yuffie, who work together to escape to the airport. I'm telling you, Disc 2 of Final Fantasy VII has some great stuff in it. Throughout the story, there's absurd and short but remarkable minigames, like reviving a child from drowning, marching in sync with a Shinra uniform and being responsible for boosting or destroying the TV ratings, escaping Midgar on the motorbike, which has a cool gameplay effect in that any damage you sustain while fighting off the guards affects your health in the following boss fight. Going on a date, and whoa, hey, back up there.
It's time to choose, gamers. What is your favorite date scene?
Is it the traditional Cloud and Aerith? Or does Tifa deserve some lovin'? Maybe you prefer the teenage ninja girl for some reason. The one who steals things from you. Or maybe you just want to feel protected and cuddled from a man who, and I quote, looks like a bear wearing a marshmallow. That's a strong endorsement there. Who's your pick? Once you're done with that, there's more exciting excursions like snowboarding through the mountains, shooting down a submarine, fighting weapons in several crazy locations like under the sea and alongside the Highwind, which were easily the toughest bosses in the game, and finding the ultimate equipment for Cloud's cross-dressing. Cloud needs to dress like a woman in order to protect Aerith as they plan to infiltrate the mansion of a sleazebag named Don Corneo, who runs an extremely deplorable business that takes advantage of young women. There's an insane amount that goes into this. You've gotta do squats with a bunch of jocks to earn a wig, clear up a woman's digestive tract to get sexy cologne, get whatever this is done to you in order to obtain the ultimate in revealing underwear, apply makeup, learn to walk delicately, convince your childhood crush that you're still all man, and finally, endure a painfully uncomfortable selection scene which may result in you having to join the Don in his bedroom. Oh, but it's all worth that awkwardness when you eventually get the upper hand, threatening to attack Corneo's family jewels if he doesn't cooperate. And wow, this scene was so risque at the time. Even today's games rarely go into such sensitive territory. This is especially true when Cloud isn't chosen and you see what happens to the other girls that apply, which amounts to them basically getting assaulted by a gang of lowlives. Ugh. It's always struck me as a scene that would not easily be forgotten in video game discussion circles, especially in the 90s when worldviews on anything other than stereotypical gender roles were still extremely rigid and unaccepting. Final Fantasy VII was so much more than simply wandering back and forth on a world map and fighting for 50 hours. Though you could definitely still do that if you wanted to, not much different than the classic games, really. These obscure but memorable segments were talked about and are still looked on fondly because of how different they were at the time. And if combat really was your true calling, you still had the Golden Saucer's Battle Arena, which was the only way to land some amazing one-of-a-kind items like Cloud's Omnislash limit. And winning just a couple battles at a time would take weeks. So you had to risk it all by plunging into the fiercest battles, while also enduring constant debilitations, like getting your HP and MP cut in half, which really wrecks your endurance, or getting minimized, which makes even awe-inspiring limit breaks like Meteor Rain become useless because you're now the size of an action figure. I could go on forever, which you know I like to do, but I'd better focus in here and highlight my favorite random diversion. There's a joyful little side quest within the rebel base, Fort Condor, which is especially dear to me. You donate money to this resistance army who is fighting valiantly to protect the Phoenix eggs. You do this by hiring and strategically placing a multitude of soldiers who protect the base from armies of raiding Shinra attackers. The graphics are 8-bit NES quality, but there's so much here. You can hire many different types of troops, each with different strengths and weaknesses against the enemy's army of fighters. You can also move and direct individual units to do specific actions. Send swift attackers to fight off the weak beasts, use bulky defenders to stand against the barbarian brutes, and deploy shooters from range to snipe the flying wyvern enemies. There's even healer dudes you can use to recover your attackers. Just don't let them try and fight, or they'll die super easily. Workers are cool, as they can plant bombs to intercept an enemy path. There's artillery too, like catapults and boulder throwers, and when you come back later on, you even get improved weapons like triple stone throwers, and the best part is when When you succeed at killing off the main attacking wave, the enemy commander waddles into the battlefield, and then you can funnel all of your troops to completely eviscerate his sorry ass. It is so satisfying. If the troops die and the enemy makes it to the lookout tower, then you have to physically run out there and fight the commander yourself. This is still cool because you can get some rare loot, and if you manage to win the final skirmish, you get treated to one of the more awe-inspiring but also very tragic cutscenes where the Phoenix must undergo its ritual of life and death, sacrificing itself to hatch its baby, who then flies away to continue the cycle.
And this, it's just an optional minigame that has absolutely no bearing on the main story. You could just completely skip it if you just walk by the place. And yet, if you wanted something like this in a game today, it would most likely be a $10 DLC expansion thingy and be much less thought out. Final Fantasy VII just delights you with gameplay that bursts at the seams. But as the Phoenix we just observed foreshadowed, it also tapped into emotions that were not common in any video game. If this is a shocker or a spoiler to anyone, I apologize, but the game is literally older than most of you are. And the internet exists. It's been 25 years, and we as gamers still haven't gotten over this moment. Aerith's death halfway through the game isn't any easier to talk about now.
Aerith isn't the first game character to die partway through a story. In fact, she's not even the first Final Fantasy party member to be offed in the course of the game's events. But with the bigger script offering greater attention and development of character relationships, this moment really hurts. Especially when it becomes apparent that Aerith is the main love interest to Cloud. Let's be real. She was always Cloud's number one. There's so much evidence towards it. Look at the bodyguard scene. Her first thought for payment is to go out with Cloud in exchange for protecting her. And what's always shocked me is that Cloud usually has his trademark "not interested" quote as an option to any question characters ask him. It's all over the place. It's even in Smash Brothers, for God's sake. But here, he simply considers her terms, nods, and faces the opposition. Obviously, this girl is different than anyone he'd ever met before. Speaking of the first meeting, she even gives the player the first opportunity to be nice by paying for a flower. Even though I'm actually more of a shipper of Tifa and Cloud myself, I honestly think they have more in common and a closer-knit lifestyle and past. I just can't deny the instant chemistry the game builds between Aerith and Cloud.
Sometimes you just love someone, even when logic deems that it shouldn't happen.
Even the fortune-telling sequence shortly before the inevitable hammers the point home. And sadly, I'm wondering if Aerith had an inclination of what was going to happen, but wanted to know if she had found that true love before all was said and done. They're simply made for each other. And when you first saw Sephiroth plummeting down to erase all of this, it hurts to the core. Remember, she's also the last of the Cetra, the Ancients. So Sephiroth isn't just murdering, he's committing what's essentially genocide.
When this moment happens, it's impossible not to feel sorrow. And if anyone doesn't, they need to get their empathy levels checked.
The lead up to it makes it hurt even more. Aerith goes on her own to the forest. You struggle to catch up with her. You're finally on the cusp of getting her back, and then Cloud loses his sanity, one moment away from doing the deed himself, as Sephiroth's will corrupts him. Does anyone remember the panic they felt as they were forced to press buttons, gradually beginning to raise that huge-ass sword over top of this wonderful, all that's right with the world flower girl? But he is able to break free, and as a player, You're relieved. You get a small victory over Sephiroth in this moment. But this just makes it hurt even more when he gets fed up and does the job himself, leaving the player powerless to do a damn thing about it. Cloud's dialogue afterwards really hits home too. First of all, he shuts up Sephiroth's monologuing about his false messiah intentions, where he drones on and on about his planet merging plan and spits some serious truth instead.
This is powerful. Cloud completely overtakes Sephiroth here.
Aerith will no longer talk, no longer laugh, cry, or get angry. What is this pain? My fingers are tingling. My mouth is dry. My eyes are burning. Nothing in life will ever manifest in her reality ever again. And Cloud, for the first time he can actively remember due to his misplaced memories, feels surges of love and loss simultaneously. And what was already a pretty desperate situation in terms of saving the planet has now got a heavy sense of personal vengeance thrown on top of it. This ties in so well to contradict everything Cloud had come to know about how he should be living his own life. His mantra was always, take care of yourself, don't make attachments, run away from it all, and then you'll never be hurt. And therefore, the planet's slow death shouldn't matter one iota to him. Even reuniting with Tifa didn't fully convince him that saving the planet was worth it. But now, in a matter of seconds, one person who could have made him happy and saved the planet has their mortal thread cut. It's depressing, real, and influential on both Cloud, the character, and the player.
Death is nothing to joke at, obviously. The step of working through that denial stage can be extremely difficult. And as the Final Fantasy VII fanbase and popularity grew, gamers fought tooth and nail to reject Aerith's fate.
In fact, before the internet was really popular, there were rumors about leveling up Aerith to level 99, or maxing her stats and getting all her ultimate weapons and limit breaks as a way to change the story and have her withstand Sephiroth's attack, but none of them are true.
This is a rare finality moment in video games that doesn't pull any punches when it comes to the impact or the fallout. There's no miracle revival like you see in so many comics and other video games. There's also no alternate plot or player choice that comes into play either. There's nothing fair about this at all.
The permanence of Aerith's death is a constant reminder on the rest of Cloud's life, and its weight remains heavy in any future timelines. If any of you out there are old like me and saw this when it originally released, you have it in your memory banks as a gaming moment that will never be altered or erased.
How deep are your wounds, gamers? I'm not asking anyone to comment on any personal hardships or trauma, but on a serious note, if posting about gaming moments like this helps in any way or feels cathartic, please drop something in the comments. I still find that, particularly as a man, it's still looked down upon to show any real semblance of feeling or emotion, even though society is gradually getting accustomed to the fact that everyone has emotions, and that sometimes they can really hurt. A lot in some cases. Believe me, I'm an INFP personality type. I get sensitivity, and it sucks sometimes, especially when it manifests as a response to something unforeseen that happens to family or friends. Because grief and loss are real things. We'll all experience them if we haven't done so already. So don't hesitate to console each other if this is a moment that still impacts you. Perhaps it was something that helped you prepare for the inevitability of pain, or maybe it's something that helped you find solace in a really difficult time. Thank you.
Let's get back into a good mood here. It's just remarkable how well this soundtrack still holds up. This is Nobuo Uematsu at his finest, and also his most plentiful. With the media switch from cartridge to CD, he had more room and better technology to flex his compositional muscle. There's such a variety of battle themes that would always generate excitement. I always got a kick out of how desperate the regular battle theme was. It's just so over the top, especially if the enemy you're facing is some lowly gopher or weed or something. Like, should I really get my heart rate up this much against a frog? But the music, it's so intense. It's like the world is going to explode unless you slay this thing. So you go all out. You use a 7-hit combo limit with Tifa, including her ultimate limit break, 7th Heaven, because the bangin' battle track has you convinced that this frog is actually a huge obstacle in your mission to save the world. It must be absolutely decimated. Die, Froggy! Yeah, we won! I'm a big man! The boss music's rocking guitar still stands tall as a mix that gets the adrenaline going, and the stakes are much higher in these fights, making it even better. Some tunes work to emphasize an awkward or humorous scene, like Junon's theme. This works so well, especially when Cloud is forced to play the role of a Shinra troop. It perfectly symbolizes the gross ineptitude of the entire military, and it keeps going when you're on the ship shortly afterwards. Look at Red try and walk around like he's a Shinra grunt. The music definitely helps the charm. Other themes, like the Slums track, convey the desolation of the environment. There are even dedicated riffs for one-time action pieces, like the high-octane theme matched to the party's escape from Midgar. Flashbacks, such as Aerith's mom's passing, are particularly effective at evoking your emotions, with Aerith's theme's gentle, sacrificial melody, even before you knew what would lie ahead. Topping it off, One-Winged Angel is almost universally recognized as an iconic, menacing battle theme that probably does the best job of emphasizing the stakes more so than any other song in video game history. That is no exaggeration. Fun fact, did you know that portions of the lyrics are excerpts from a manuscript of poems called the Carmina Burana, some of which were written as far back as 1,000 years ago? It's insane to witness the amount of research and effort Uematsu-san puts into his phenomenal scores. Much respect.
Wouldn't life be more exciting if we had a live soundtrack in our backgrounds? I mean, imagine going through your life, your day-to-day routine, absolutely nothing remarkable or exciting is happening, but you have this amazing live instrumentation in the background. It would really do wonders for our banal existence.
touched on this in the intro, but the FMV scenes really were exciting 25 years ago. And especially for me, I grew up on a farm and internet didn't even exist for me until 2002. So you can imagine how thrilled I was to see these computer-generated movies being shown on a television. It was so badass. Even simple things like getting onto an elevator or going on a ride to the gold saucer had amazing animation to get you from place to place. The most impactful ones were the scenes that actually modeled the party in full CGI, like the motorcycle escape. Barrett's big thuds are audible as he walks. You see Red's graceful leap into the truck and then watch it take off, Cloud's reflection shining off the bike before he revs it up and smashes through the glass, leading their getaway onto the freeway. Just try and watch this without getting excited or smiling. I dare you. Other games had done scenes like this, of course, on PC and even other PlayStation games, but these were just better and more interactive. Even this early on in the lifespan of CGI scenes, players got to interact a bit with Cloud in some big moments, like when Weapon attacks Midgar, or when Aerith and Cloud take in the splendorous light show of the Gold Saucer. This integration just absorbed you even more into the world of the game. Compared to the awful polygonal characters, I think these scenes have actually stood the test of time very well. They're only running at about 20 frames per second, but damn, the art direction and energy in these sequences were just so compelling to watch. Let's end this hit with this moment, which I'm sure is permanently etched into players' minds since 1997.
Oh, whew. I mean, how do I follow up that enshrined, immortalized cutscene? And moreover, what right do I have to speak any ill of the game that popularized RPGs outside of Japan? The game that bridged the gap between the East and the West? The game that brought a whole bunch of other franchises to North America because of the success that Final Fantasy VII established? The game that became so popular that the fan base's voices became loud enough for Square Enix to completely remake the game. Well, because it's funny, it's kind of my job, and the misses give us a really good indication of how far RPGs have come in the last 25 years. So let's take a look.
Huh? What's this? Knights of the Round? Okay.
Wow, this is awesome! Look at all the knights! I could never get tired of this!
But as it turns out, you really can. There's some amazing summons in Final Fantasy VII. It makes sense why they included so much summoning materia. They wanted to showcase the graphical abilities of the PlayStation, and it worked. They're still talked about today as being way ahead of their time. The dynamic camera angles, special effects like lightning bolts with Rama, the wavy haze after effects from a Fritz Hellfire, and the dramatic pan around the planet for Bahamut were awe-inspiring. I mean, looking at them now, I'm actually amazed at how well they've aged. But these summons, especially Knights of the Round, are repetitive, unskippable, and they also started a very aggravating tradition among PlayStation Final Fantasies of having long, drawn-out summons that couldn't be shortened until Final Fantasy IX. If you're against a really powerful enemy, like any of the weapons, you need summons like Knights of the Round to give yourself a chance. But when you're required to use them so often, you get so bored. After the 50th time of summoning 13 knights to do 1,300,000 points of damage, and what the hell is the context of this? Most of the other summons in Final Fantasy history are from old mythological super beings like Bahamut and Shiva, but here they cross over to the legend of King Arthur for some reason, which, while still apparently fictional, is much more rooted in real-world British history than any of these summons. But back to the time that these take, if you were to consecutively use every one of the 16 available summoning materia in Final Fantasy VII, which is something you could actually do if you were fighting one of the weapons, you'd be watching your screen, unblinking, for almost exactly 10 minutes. That's way too long without any player interactivity. The game is already 60 freaking hours. This is like the last game that ever needed padding.
It would be like, I don't know, giving Tom Brady 10 extra Super Bowl rings. He doesn't need them. Especially back in 1997, this game already had more content in it than any other release at the time.
The only contemporary game I can think of that would even come close would be Zelda Ocarina of Time. But in terms of overall length, difficulty, and cryptic secrets, Final Fantasy VII is definitely the winner. And if we're criticizing long-ass attacks, we also have to mention Sephiroth's ultimate move, Supernova. If it's possible for an attack to be narcissistic, this is it. Don't get me wrong, it's spectacular. Probably the most technically amazing, awe-inspiring villain move in gaming history. A comet is summoned that pierces through most of the solar system before causing the sun to explode and sear the surface of the earth. But holy crap, this animation lasts for 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
No bullspit. Serious.
The first time I saw this, I had no idea what was going on. I initially thought the battle had paused and this was some kind of expositional backstory about a comet that was actually Lavos from Chrono Trigger hitting the planet, and that the two games' lore was going to be intricately connected. But I realized it was an actual attack in this game when the planet kinda gets destroyed, seared by the fire, which is right against Tifa's face.
And as you'd expect, Supernova has the devastating, catastrophic effect of turning Cloud into a frog.
And moderately injuring he and his friends. Yep, just dust that calamitous event off. I mean, something of that magnitude that wiped out the dinosaurs, caused the extinction of 3/4 of the land population of animals on the Earth. Something of that enormity, in Final Fantasy logic, equates to a few thousand HP damage and some side effects. Yeah, just pop some Mega Elixirs and sprinkle a little Asuna magic on those asteroid scars. That'll do ya. Man up. Don't be a wuss. Sorry, don't be a frog. Asuna time. Why you being so weak, bud?
It's just the apocalypse. It's not anything that we haven't already dealt with for going on 3 years already.
This thing is so overwhelming that players might not even know what to do after. You've forgotten what your plan was and what healing you might have to do, and then Sephiroth almost kills you with his next attack because you can't get over what's happening. Summoning materia in general is a chore to use. The thing was, back then, we loved doing it over and over because we thought this was the most hyper-realistic effects we were ever going to see in our lives. But especially today, we'd give up all of our magic points to not have to see these long-ass slogs again.
There's so much dead time here that could have so easily been avoided. Not even giving the player an option to skip all these summon animations was something that should be as simple as a button press. That is just inexcusable.
The character designs of Tetsuya Nomura are still wildly heralded for their greatness, and rightly so. There's no argument that these are the most popular Final Fantasy characters ever created within the 35-year-old franchise. You could use a silhouette panorama of the main cast of Final Fantasy VII, and even casual fans could instantly recognize each of them. Cloud's spiky hair and Mako eyes, Red's calmness contrasting with his ferocious-looking exterior and flaming tail, Barrett's Mr. T ensemble, Cid's cigarette that he has to smoke after every battle, the adorableness of Kate Sith, and Tifa's big, beautiful eyes.
I zoomed in exactly where you thought I would, eh? Seeing the variety here, you'd think that the game would go to great lengths to differentiate each character with their different body types and abilities, maybe combine them in a way to let them use combo attacks, take their stats into consideration, all of that wonderful combat-heavy stuff. Well, what we got was... Is this stimulating? Does it keep you on the edge of your seat? You and your thumb will be completely exhausted, especially if you're trying to level grind.
Every character can attack and damage the enemy with equal success, and every character has similar stats. Yes, Cloud has more vitality and less spirit than Aerith, but their magic points and hit points are nearly the same. Cid and Vincent are almost identical. Some characters may hit a little bit harder or take a bit less damage, but by and large, there's really not much of a difference in anything you do. Not only this, every fighter can equip the exact same materia across all characters, so you can just go along with any party member you want and not worry about building up the rest. In fact, the game makes this very easy, encouraging it even more. You can quickly swap your materia orbs, including during story sections in the game where the party is split up. So it doesn't matter if you haven't really been using the rest of the cast. You get Yuffie here, who hasn't barely fought at all, but she can just instantly get Tifa's leveled up materia. There, nothing else needed. There's literally no reason to switch out characters and build them equally. Different equipment holds different amounts of slots, and some equipment can double the materia growth, but again, this feature spans across the cast. When it comes to actual combat, the only strategic options for character position you have are back row and front row. Normally, melee fighters like Cloud will always be in the front to do more damage, while characters with guns like Vincent will stay in the back row because they'll take less damage but still attack with good power using their long-range weapons. Casters like Aerith will do the same thing using magic attacks. So this order command is always static and the player won't ever change them because there's no reason to, except in the rare cases where there's a back attack on your party, in which case you'll want to use change to move around melee fighters to the front and magic users to the back. Whoa, yeah, that was complicated, wasn't it? It's honestly just an annoyance more than anything. There's a couple other battle formations that occur when either you're attacked from both sides or have the enemy in a pincer attack, wherein you can deal heavy damage if you attack when their back is turned. But older games like Chrono Trigger have much more dynamic movement and possibilities than this. You needed to show both patience and also quick reactions if you wanted to attack the most enemies and use your techniques most effectively. Here, if you want to hit all the enemies, you literally equip a materia called All and then link it with a magic and spam some spells. It's just so static and unchanging here. Honestly, the sole feature that makes any battle unique are the limit breaks. These are the only advantages some characters have more than others. So you keep Tifa in because her limits are fun to look at, they string together with each other for insane damage on multiple opponents, and they actually have some interactivity. Cloud is permanent in 95% of the game, so you're stuck with his whether you like them or not, and that leaves room for one other character, which you can then just slot in forever and not worry about anyone else.
And if your third party member was Kate Sith, I actually respect that.
Dude gets no regard. One of the very last bizarre super Japanese characters consisting of a stuffed Mog that's operated by a robotic cat, which in turn is controlled by an undercover Shinra employee.
This was before the games had to go super serious, and they just began pumping out bland humanoid characters for everything afterwards. Like this.
Give me this dopey Mog every time. Speaking of limit breaks, his are top tier. Look at how much variety is on display. Like Tifa's, he has some interactivity, and you never know what you're going to get. You might summon a question mark anvil, heal yourself completely, summon an army of toy soldiers, grow into an even bigger Mog, but you definitely know it's going to delight you and fill you with life.
Goddamn spy-lurking jerk-ass two-timing cat! Didn't like you for a second.
Now, to be fair, there are some rare materia you can get, which are very unique, like Double Cut, which gives you 2 and eventually 4 regular attacks at once, which I honestly think inspired Cloud's side smash attack in Nintendo's Smash series, but what do I know? There's also W item, which can let you use double the items. Classic gamers will remember the W item cheat that lets you get infinite amounts of any item you want, and Morph, which can turn enemies into items, including one-of-a-kind ones like the guidebook that you can use to get underwater materia, because who wants to fight an ultimate organic weapon while needing to hold their breath? Especially when this is the only way you're probably going to kill it. Probably the most unique materia is enemy skill, in which you can use magic that's cast against you in future battles. Even deeper is the fact that some of these skills won't be cast on you without you having to use the manipulate materia to control the enemies and force them to use the skill against you, like White Wind and Big Guard. 2 of the best support spells in the game. The attack-based ones are no slouches either. They're some of the biggest, game-breakingest elemental beatdowns, such as Aqualung, Trine, and Beta, which you can learn very early on from the Midgar Zolom, if you're brave. But despite this depth, my point still stands, because anyone in the party can do these things. There's even multiple enemy skill materias you can find. So you can make it so that everyone can do all of these skills at the same time. This homogenized structure for battle commands is a real letdown. Referring back to Chrono Trigger again, that old 16-bit game had 7 characters who had 8 completely unique abilities on their own, which you couldn't get by using other party members. And then you would combine those abilities to make even more unique spells, which required certain party combinations. It rewarded your experimentation and swapping characters in and out. There were literally over 100 attacks on an old school Super NES game. There's far more than 100 commands in Final Fantasy VII, but when everyone can do them, it just makes it so less special. Ironically, the variety and constant change that makes revisiting this game a genuine pleasure is non-existent in the battle system, the one mechanic that still dominates the majority of Final Fantasy VII. After all, at its heart, this is still a grinding RPG where you try and evolve your little humans into small gods by the end of the game. It's just too bad that the visual representation of your progress to the point of ultimate power is mostly just a very gentle incline of newer spells and shinier swords. Regardless of whether you're fighting behemoths or icicles, the same actions are being performed from hour 2 to hour 52. Seriously, icicles! What the hell is this? This is the stupidest enemy in RPG history! If I wanted to battle icicles, I'd just walk outside to my garage in my Western Canada home. Oh yeah, I'm so buff and alpha. That frozen water can't handle me. This is also an instance where the Final Fantasy VII Remake absolutely destroys the original. Each character has such a more unique, defined style in combat with authentic and varied skills while still being faithful to the materia system. Maybe I'll have to do a hit and miss video on the successor someday, if my viewers would enjoy that. Imagine you're a young person residing in the slums. One day, you're blindsided by a girl who is the very definition of beautiful. She's adorned with a cute pink bow tie, holding her hair in an elegant rope braid, a scarlet red vest, and a delightful pink dress, with emerald eyes shining with kindness. You can tell she's not naive, and you sense some deep sorrow within, but it's overpowered by a friendly, optimistic vibe that radiates from her in just one glance. So, you man up and walk towards her as she stands beside the entrance to a resident's house. You prepare to give your best introduction, pickup line, or whatever you think will work, but before you can say anything, she speaks first, while pointing at the nearby residence, and the first thing you hear out of those sweet lips is,
"This guy are sick."
You smile awkwardly, backpedal a few steps, stumble into a nearby garbage can, and get up sheepishly in a desperate hurry to get away, as clearly this girl has not learned the basics of the English language.
Yeah. We all know this is the biggest blunder in Final Fantasy VII's original English translation. Although it's much better done now, back then, especially with Japanese games, there were tons of errors, especially when it comes to things that were simply lost in context. But I can't help but think that these were all really easily correctable errors. You can't tell me video game translators working in North America in 1997 were incapable of proofreading. Haven't people ever seen these? Oh, wait, no, of course you haven't. You were born in 2004. Well, let's look at some more. Unfortunately, all I have in my game footage is the updated PC translation. So I'd like to use this opportunity to promote thelifestream.net, an amazing Final Fantasy VII resource compendium that also has a well-organized layout complete with the translations of the original and the PCs back to back, so we can easily poke fun at all the errors that were made, even though it really wasn't as bad as other Japanese to North American games that were translated. But you have to consider the standards that this was being held up to. Everything else in Final Fantasy VII is like God tier, so when something actually struggles, it makes it look like it really struggles.
Here's one from the battle arena. You win a battle, and it'll ask you, "Keep going?" To which you can reply, "Of course!" So, if you pick that one, does that mean you will keep going off course? That sounds like a bad thing if you just say that in a sentence. Like, you're going to swerve and plunge into the battle arena's lava? That extra F, oh, it completely fails.
What? Ungarmax? What in the hell is Ungarmax?
It sounds like the name of an angry Pokemon that eats a lot. Or no, it sounds like some kind of off-road vehicle that has 980 horsepower and 5,000 tons of towing, made for the most manliest, narcissistic men in the world, with testosterone that just ripples through their voices and veins. Ungarmax! The correct version, Anger Max, is still stupid, but it at least matches the character and reflects the intensity of the limit break. In Fort Condor that we looked at earlier, the PlayStation version describes mines as torpedoes. Can you spot the difference between these two objects? They don't even have close to the same function. This is a torpedo. It shoots down submarines. Does this look like a torpedo to you? How did they screw this up? And look at the next sentence. Torpedoes explode when touched by the enemy. So now the player is very confused. They're thinking some guy is just going to tap this large missile, which belongs on a submarine, and it'll blow up? Man, that's bad. And some of the translation differences are so drastic, they change our perception of the main characters. Check out the differences in the dialogue about what Cloud would do if Barrett left the party. In the original, the touching honesty about having nightmares if Barrett died here is a huge moment for Cloud to admit to. Whereas in the PC version, he just regurgitates a "we need your help for the planet" line. That's a huge difference in the way we perceive someone. In the first example, you see a Cloud who wouldn't be able to live with himself, maybe referencing some PTSD symptoms or any number of awful war memories. But in the new translation, he's just like, yeah, so we're gonna save the planet? And the more the better, so just do that and come with us, okay? Taken all together, the translation is sometimes worse on the original, sometimes actually worse on the PC, but it's assuredly not well done, regardless of which one you're looking at. I don't want to throw Final Fantasy VII under the bus too much. The game really let loose with personality, especially with Cid. I've played this for a quarter century, and I'm still taken aback by just how incensed Cid gets when his wife was slightly delayed in getting the party some tea. I'm even more bewildered at how much Cid values hospitality. Sit down and drink your goddamn tea! You'd think he was running a bed and breakfast with how enraged he gets at the prospect of guests not having some tea to drink. Let's conclude with the legendary 59-floor stairwell climb. There's tons of humor here, with Tifa telling Barrett to ask the stairs how many of them there are, which prompts his consideration of the possible existence of endless stairways. Then, about 30 floors up, Barrett decides he's had it and is going back. And Tifa has to state the obvious, that it'll take just as long to get back to the starting point. The most shocking is Barrett's melodramatic, "Marlene, Daddy just wanted to see your face one last time," followed by Tifa's, "Would you stop acting like a retard and climb?" Now, I'm not condoning the use of the word retard. That's just not an acceptable word to use, even at the time of Final Fantasy VII's original release. Another example of how poorly the translation was done. However, if it was cleaned up to be more appropriate, this is just awesome, because Tifa's usually so warm and motherly, but after 40 floors of climbing, her completely snapping at Barrett's constant whining is just the best. Shockingly, this line has not been altered in even the most recent port of the game. Someone should edit this to keep Tifa's harsh retaliation intact, but give it some better class. Intertwined with all of this is actual heartfelt conversations, where Barrett realizes he might have been wrong about Cloud, that someone actually can be important enough for Cloud to fight for, and neither he nor us as players knew how true this would become. In a game with so many great character moments, who'd have thought that some of the best comedy and introspection would be found in a 5-minute climb up some stairs?
Well, gamers, this has been a wonderful ride through memory lane, revisiting the game that sold many a PlayStation while paving the way for the Japanese RPG genre in countries outside of Japan has been a ride really worth taking.
Let's all rejoice at the fact that Square brought Final Fantasy VII over to North America, because even with all of its shortcomings, its world, emotion, and characters are still relevant and amazing to this day. Without its success, we may very well have been deprived of many other great RPG franchises that followed.
This has been Shep from Gaming Introspection, and as usual, I'll see you in a couple weeks. This episode was pretty serious, so we'll chillax and take it easy next time. Have a great weekend, gamers.